Well, since I covered the first 3 seasons, I might as well do the rest of them. I think it's safe to say that after the first 3 seasons in the theatrical film, the show started to hit a slow decline in quality. Not the season that came out right after this, season 4, definitely wasn't bad. I think the season had some really good episodes, and some of them could rival the best of the previous seasons. However, season 4 did have more notably bad ones than the previous ones. So today I'm going to discuss my favorites and least favorites of the 4th season. Of course, as with most lists, it's all subjective, and you may disagree with some of these. So if you'd like to, feel free to tell me your favorites and least favorites down in the comment section. Anyway, to end things on a positive note, let's start with the top 5 worst episodes of season 4. Number 5. Good Neighbors. In this episode, it's Sunday and Squidward is preparing for his weekly day off from work and relaxation. However, just as he's getting ready, SpongeBob and Patrick interfere by initiating him as the president of the Good Neighbor Lodge. Squidward then gets the idea to take it as an advantage by assigning them with a task of painting the trees. But it ends up backfiring as Squidward loses a large chunk of his time off. This episode started a trend of long, unfunny Squidward torture-centered episodes. And a lot of the later seasons really falls victim to that trend. And you'd probably figure out how I feel about them. Most of the episode is SpongeBob and Patrick being completely oblivious to how Squidward feels and even how much he's suffering. And what's worse is that Squidward barely done anything to make it justifiable. And keep in mind, this is the entire episode. I mean, I guess I did find the scene where Squidward House went on a rampage kind of funny. But even that's tainted with this episode's horrendous ending. With Squidward taking the blame for all the destruction and losing every Sunday. That's not funny or cute, that's just plain awful. Yes, he did install the system, but he wasn't even in the house when it attacked. Overall, while this isn't the worst example of this trend, Good Neighbors is still an unfunny episode that started a trend of episodes that went on for way longer than it should.
Gee, Patrick, do you think Squidward was trying to tell us something?
Yes, I was! You call yourselves good neighbors? You're the worst neighbors ever!
Number 4. Squidward. Tired of being ignored and turned down by Squidward, SpongeBob makes a miniature puppet version of Squidward to hang out with. However, when he's shown off to the public, people start to take interest in the puppet over the actual Squidward. I will admit that I do like the design of Puppet Squidward. It does look pretty cute and charming. And this episode does kind of sneak in a couple of funny moments.
Hey, Squidward, wanna play? Okay, Squidward.
But sadly, this is another case of an episode that tortures Squidward for no reason. Seeing people praise what's essentially a carbon copy over the original is really unfunny and kind of an asshole move. Like, I don't care if it's just a miniature puppet. They're practically the same thing. And yet seeing the Bikini Bottomites take interest in the puppet over Squidward? Who on earth would find that funny? He even loses his own job to the puppet. What the f***? At least it doesn't go on for as long as Good Neighbors. But here it's a lot more hypocritical as well as malicious. And what's worse is by the end, it's not really resolved. The puppet just takes over Squidward's dreams and that's it. He's gone. Thank God he's gone, but seriously, I really feel sorry for Squidward. If you're gonna have an episode where he just gets stepped on, at least give him a happy ending or a break. Again, I wouldn't say it's as bad as other episodes, but it's not really much of a compliment when the episode is still this awful.
What manner of annoying scheme is this?
Just say hello to him, Squidward. You know how sensitive he is.
Hi.
Number 3. Squidtastic Voyage. Following an accident, Squidward swallows his clarinet. SpongeBob manages to get the clarinet out of his throat, but the reed is snapped off the clarinet and is still in Squidward's throat. So they decide to seek medical help from Sandy, who comes up with the idea to shrink herself to extract the reed from Squidward's throat. However, SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally shrink themselves down along with the submarine, so now it's up to them to take care of the mission of extracting the reed. I don't know about you, but I hate it when shows do this kind of concept of going inside someone's body, because most of them lead to the same unfunny joke of, oh look, that guy is going all around the body and organs, and even messing around with some of their organs like it's a toy. It's not clever, it's not funny, it's just all around disgusting. I was more wincing at this episode than I was laughing at it. By the end of the episode, I swear I thought I was gonna throw up. It doesn't help either that once again, SpongeBob and Patrick are completely oblivious. Although to be fair, I did find this line kind of funny.
Sandy's grown to gigantic size!
I don't think Sandy grew, Patrick. I think we shrunk.
That's silly. Don't you think it's more likely that the entire world grew?
But outside of that, Squidtastic Voyage is a good example of cringe-inducing. For me, at least. If you aren't a fan of these kind of concepts, then trust me, you're not really missing much.
You're not in control of your actions! Hey!
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not in control of my actions.
Number 2. Hocus Pocus. SpongeBob purchases a magic kit from Mr. Magic, and he decides to show off his magic skills to Squidward. However, by coincidence, SpongeBob believes he turned Squidward into an ice cream cone, and this worries SpongeBob as he can't transform him back. So SpongeBob now has to keep Squidward safe from harm now that he's more vulnerable. Hocus Pocus is easily the most boring episode of this season. Seriously, outside of 1 or 2 moments and that Wizard of Oz reference, which I'll admit was kind of charming, the entire episode just has nothing to offer. We're mostly watching SpongeBob mistaken an ice cream cone for Squidward, and the fact that this joke drags on for the entire episode is even worse. Like, even as a little kid, I could tell exactly where it was going. Yeah, when you find yourself hating an episode as a young child, that's when you know how bad it is.
Patrick! Stop eating Squidward!
Oh, sorry. But it's so tasty!
Number 1. The Gift of Gum. On Best Friends Day, Patrick gives SpongeBob a giant ball of gum as a present. And at first, SpongeBob feels pleased with his gift, but after getting it inside the house, he soon realizes how disgusting it is with all this content. SpongeBob tends to get rid of it without Patrick knowing to spare his feelings, but this manages to make the situation even worse. One common complaint I've heard about the episodes from the later seasons is how unnecessarily grotesque and graphic it can get. Now, you have to be careful with how you show off these kind of things, especially towards a younger audience. And this episode fails horribly at that. While I wouldn't say it's as nauseating as Squidtastic Voyage or The Splinter, it's still really cringe-inducing. Seriously, I really didn't blame SpongeBob for wanting to get rid of it. While I get he didn't want to hurt Patrick's feelings, SpongeBob should have been honest from the get-go. Because I don't know any sane person who would want a gift like that. Just, ugh. Again, I wouldn't say it's as bad or as cringe-inducing as The Splinter, but at least I'll give that episode at least had one funny moment. The Gift of Gum just has nothing to offer. So it's no surprise this ended up being my least favorite episode of the season. So those are my picks for the top 5 worst season 4 episodes. So that just leaves the best episodes. It was a bit easier to decide what were my favorite episodes of the season because I do like a lot of their episodes. While there weren't as many good episodes in the season compared to the previous 3, some of them can actually be on par with those episodes. So let's take a look at the 5 best episodes of this season. Number 5. Dunces and Dragons. SpongeBob and Patrick attend a jousting match and are called in to fight in it. But after a complete accident, they're sent back in time to the medieval age. There, they come across the ancestors of their friends, including Squidly the Jester, King Krabs, Princess Pearl, Sandy the Dark Knight, and Planktonomore. I can definitely see why this episode gets a ton of praise from fans. The adventure that SpongeBob and Patrick go on is pretty entertaining. The characters and the roles they play are really fitting, and they manage to supply it with a lot of funny jokes. I found myself laughing a lot during this episode. I'd say the one drawback this episode has is that it sometimes ignores a bit of continuity. While not as distracting as Camp Coral, there are a few elements that don't really add up. From how one of Sandy's ancestors is somehow underwater when most of them are from Texas, to how King Krabs presumably invented the Krabby Patty when that was technically his descendant. In fact, I feel like the latter is often retconned in the show. Like, guys, make up your mind already! But despite that, this is still a really entertaining episode. And I could definitely say it's worth the praise it receives.
Huh? What's this? A lost piece of the prophecy?
Let me guess. More praise for our heroic stature?
Actually, it says I'm supposed to kick you out of here.
Number 4. Best Frenemies. A new restaurant has sparked in popularity, even rivaling the Krusty Krab. Krabs assumes it's Plankton's evil doing, but that's not the case this time. So they decide to work together to discover the ingredients of the restaurant's signature product. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this was the first episode where Mr. Krabs and Plankton worked together to accomplish their goals. And for being the first one, it's actually really good. Well, the best goes to friend or foe, but this is still pretty good. The ways Mr. Krabs and Plankton try to break into the restaurant to steal the formula is pretty funny. And the fact that they realized that they could just buy this shake is freaking hilarious. Like, seriously, seeing Mr. Krabs struggle so hard to buy this shake makes me laugh every time. Admittedly, I did kind of raise my eyebrow when we found out what was in the shake, but aside from that, I think this episode is really good. And like I said, it's nice to see Mr. Krabs and Plankton work together to accomplish their goals. It's not one of the best examples, but it's still a great episode nonetheless.
Don't try that with me, Plankton. This new store is ruining me business.
Really? Wait a minute! That's my job!
Number 3. Krusty Tower. After spending time at a hotel, Krabs gets the idea to turn his restaurant into a hotel. But this only makes Squidward's job harder because he has to follow the motto, never deny a guest. This becomes so stressful that Squidward finally snaps and quits his job. But instead of never looking back, he takes advantage of the motto and lives his life where Mr. Krabs caters his every whim. This is honestly one of the most satisfying episodes of this season. With how many episodes there are of Squidward getting pushed around and stepped on, it's great that we have an episode where Squidward gets the upper hand. Almost everything that happens in this episode is comedy gold. Even the stuff that Squidward goes through the first half manages to get a chuckle out of me. That's really impressive. And unlike something like sports, Squidward's actions feel justifiable, because Mr. Krabs kept making Squidward's job a lot harder and taking the easy route just to save a quick buck. Mr. Krabs practically deserved all of that. This is easily the funniest episode of this season and one of the most satisfying episodes of the show.
You don't need me to chew your food for you, or make you a back scratcher out of my own spine, or maybe extinguish the sun so the light don't get in your eyes.
No, I'm good.
Me too.
Number 2. Krabs vs. Plankton. After another failed attempt to steal the formula, Plankton fakes a severe injury to sue Mr. Krabs for the formula. Krabs hires a lawyer to help with his case, but after he gets injured, SpongeBob takes over Krabs' case. But he struggles to get the key to Krabs' victory. I have somewhat of a fascination with these court plots. Sometimes these can be really engaging or really funny. And I can definitely say that this episode is really engaging and really funny. In fact, for a moment, I actually thought Plankton was going to get away with this. Granted, I knew this was a SpongeBob episode and something had to happen, but I still found the trial to be really engaging. Plus, there are a lot of funny moments in this episode that really had me laughing.
In fact, I think we should counter-sue for everything Plankton owns. Does that happen a lot?
No, they're usually silver.
Admittingly, there were a few times where SpongeBob went a bit over his head, but unlike most other episodes, it wasn't to a point where it got frustrating. Overall, Krabs vs. Plankton is a really great episode, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of these kind of episodes in the future.
Never, you little whelp!
My widow arm!
What? No! I didn't lay a claw on him!
Ow! My other arm! Ow!
He's lying! Bah!
Number 1. Have you seen the Snail? SpongeBob gets a new paddle ball set and attempts the Dirty Bubble Challenge. But he gets so lost and focused on this accomplishment, he forgets to feed Gary. Eventually, he decides to leave to keep SpongeBob focused on his needs. He then comes across an old cat or snail lady who takes him in as her pet, which seems like heaven for him at first. Meanwhile, SpongeBob soon realizes his mistake and ventures out to find Gary. Out of every episode following the first 3 seasons, Have You Seen the Snail is the most emotional of them. And I think the strength of this episode is its relatability. I could picture some people who are in the same situation as SpongeBob. Heck, I could picture myself in SpongeBob's situation. At first, it does seem a bit off of SpongeBob to shut the door on Gary, but it feels mostly out of misunderstanding, and he does regret his actions when he discovered what happened, and this does lead to a lot of heartfelt moments. I really did sympathize with SpongeBob after losing Gary, and I think that's what really makes this episode special. And even aside from that, the rest of the episode is really fantastic. I really liked Gary's side of the story as much as I liked SpongeBob's, and his realization that SpongeBob really misses him does feel a bit natural, because he realized from what SpongeBob is doing and not from interaction. On top of that, the episode is really funny as well, with a couple of jokes that really got a laugh out of me. Although for some reason, I really didn't find that one joke that people made a meme out of really funny even as a kid. I honestly found the way people used it to be a lot funnier.
Don't they know?
I also really love the song for this episode. It's a really nice song to listen to both in context and on its own. It might just be one of my favorite songs of the entire show.
Gary, now I know I was wrong. I messed up, and now you're gone.
I honestly don't know what else there is to say about this episode. It's a really charming and fantastic episode that really hits me hard, and I easily consider it my favorite episode of Season 4.
SpongeBob! I just remembered. Earlier today at the craft store, I saw these huge chunks of balsa wood. They were awesome.
Gary loved balsa wood!
So those are my favorites from Season 4. I didn't realize how easy it was just to make a regular top 10 of my favorites and least favorites and just making 10-word reviews on these episodes. Anyways, I want to thank you all for watching this, and I hope to see you again for the Season 5 list. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified when my next video comes out. And be sure to tell me your favorites and least favorites down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.